Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Inside Rovers away day preview. Joining me to look ahead to a trip to Cambridge United on Tuesday night, editor of the Doncaster Free Press, Liam Hoden, and a Cambridge United reporter, I should say, for Prost International, Alex Jones. Alex, welcome to the preview show. It's a game on Tuesday night that's been thrown upon us by the EFL, and it's two teams, I suppose. Cambridge just outside the relegation zone, Rovers in it at present, a big one for both sides.
Yeah, really big. We've had to kind of come down after Saturday with the whole cup thing. And we had another game on Tuesday night against Portsmouth in the Papa John's Trophy. So it's been a case of trying to get our heads back into league fixtures again, which has been quite difficult. I think for fans, and it'll probably be the same for the players. But even though that we're in a nice position at the moment, I think there's a job to be done still. We want to keep that gap on the bottom four. And Tuesday, I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying, for us is a really important game and one that we see as a winnable one to keep that cushion at the moment.
Is that perhaps the manager's biggest task at Cambridge this season? Although the bread and butter has always been, of course, staying in the division, building on what you did last season, winning promotion. Now, all of a sudden, you've got this big sort of elephant in the room of an FA Cup run. You've beaten Newcastle, obviously got Luton in the next round. How does he go about, do you feel, keeping the players' eyes on what is the main task of staying in the division?
I think it's an issue there for sure, but I think maybe the biggest thing at the moment is the fixture congestion. We have one of the smallest squads in the division, I'd say, maybe outside of teams that have really thin squads like Gillingham. We've got one of maybe the smallest outside of them. There's not much in the way of numbers, and you might remember in the game back at Doncaster in October, we were so thin on the ground and couldn't, the full bench had to recall players, emergency loanees. It was chaos, and obviously that's not changed massively since then, and we're going to be going on a run of having to play Saturday, Tuesday, obviously the rearranged game against Doncaster on Tuesday. And then we're going to have cup games that are going to have to come in there. We're going to Rotherham the week after in the Papa John's, which is a long way from Cambridge. And we're then going to have the FA Cup game against Luton, and that then causes another league game to be rearranged. So I think it is a point of saying we have to keep our eyes on the league because it is the most important thing. And I think maybe in a way, Luton not being the most glamorous tie, it's not a Man United away or something. I think that's doable. I think the biggest task Mark Bonner has at the moment is trying to keep the core of the first team fit and healthy over what is a horrible run of games.
Liam, Gary McSheffrey openly admitted that he would have preferred this fixture to have been played maybe in March time when Rovers have probably got a couple of more players back and the schedule is a little bit less hectic for them. But of course, for Cambridge, their progression in a couple of cup competitions means that this fixture has to be played in the middle of January. It's a fixture that, with all due respect to Cambridge and the run Rovers have got now, a lot of fixtures they'll go into as underdogs. This one represents a chance to get some points on the board.
It does, and I think that's the way we're looking at it prior to being postponed, and it's the same now. You know, they've done fantastically well, Cambridge, as it said, a small squad, and they've had all the cup stuff to deal with as well. But to be in a position where they're outside the relegation zone, they've got a bit of a cushion as well. That's a fantastic point for them to be at as a newly promoted side at this stage of the season. But, you know, the form's very patchy in the league. You know, I think they've only won 3 at home, so in the league as well. So, yeah, this is a game that Rovers have got to be. You know, it's a very tough run for Rovers. We know that. What's up? This one has got to be one we're thinking. Look, in a few of these away trips that we've got coming up, it's going to be very, very difficult to pick up some points. So this is one where we definitely need to be getting something out of it.
And 1 point on the road this season, Rovers have got to find a formula, haven't they, to pick up these results. We saw in the last away game, they got halfway there to getting the job done, 3-0 up at Morecambe. So you look at that and think if you can take the good parts from that and replicate it into a more complete performance, there will be an opportunity there for Rovers to build on something at Cambridge.
Yeah, they've got to get that balance right, and got to kind of decide it. I really like the way they went about things at Morecambe from the start, really going at Morecambe and kind of sensing a little bit of vulnerability. Is that the way to go against Cambridge? I'm not sure. It's the other side of things that they really need to get right. That being, very resolute and steadfast, which obviously we saw didn't happen at all in that second half at Morecambe. But in terms of being an away side and being difficult to break down, difficult to beat, they've not quite had that this season at any stage. They really need in this second half of the season. And I think Gary McSheffrey's touched upon it himself and kind of emphasised this himself. They need to, be a difficult side to come up against when they're on the road, and hopefully they'll start on Tuesday night.
Alex, you mentioned the reverse fixture early on. It's obviously been a few months since that game, a 1-1 draw here at the Eco Power. How have Cambridge since then adapted even further to life in League One? I think when we spoke, they were sort of had a decent start and were maybe just starting to look over their shoulder a little bit. What have they done since then, do you feel, to sort of acclimatise even further?
Yeah, I think it was quite a worrying time because we'd come into the Doncaster game having just been slapped 4-1 by Shrewsbury and having gone down to 10 men, and the squad was looking really thin with the injuries and the suspensions. It was a big issue. Getting the players back has helped since then. But I think the main issue was that we had a horrible run of games. We had to go and play MK Dons, Sunderland, Wigan, all in the space of a month. And really, we've kind of been relying on the fact that there are teams below us who haven't been able to pick up wins consistently. And then when it's mattered, for example, when we went to Cheltenham I think it was the start of December, it was seen as a must-win game with them having come up as champions from League Two just ahead of us last season. And we went and we beat them 5-0. I think one of two teams to win at Cheltenham, full stop. So when it matters, when it's a big game, we always show up, I like to think. Not always taking the win, but we've been much better at doing that. And you can see the progression this team has made. I mean, as you said, this being recorded before the weekend's games. We go to Lincoln on Saturday. In the reverse leg at the Abbey, we lost 5-1. And we look at this one now and think, well, based on their performances this season and based on how we've improved since then, it's one of those where they could be there for the taking. And so I think it will be a good test to show just how much progression we've made from September, October through to now.
Liam, a lot's been made, as I said, about the run Rovers have got coming up. The fact is, the simple facts are, Rovers can't be choosy about who they face. They've simply got to start picking up points, haven't they? Otherwise, the situation will only get worse. They've got to start bridging that gap. It's already at 9 points now. They can't afford it to get any bigger than that.
They really can't. And I do think that they've been fortunate a little bit that it's took this long for it to widen from that 6 point mark or within 6 points that it were for so long, while Rovers weren't picking up results. They've been a little bit fortunate that they're not further adrift given their own form. So, as you say, they've got to take matters into their own hands. Hopefully, the new additions coming in can provide that bit of spark. Kieran Agard, of course, hopefully can get on a scoring run or even just ignite a bit of creativity in that final third, whether he's the man putting the ball in the back of the net or whether he's helping others do so himself. That's what they need to do. They've got to take the initiative themselves now. This is the time to do it. Otherwise, the more every week that goes by, the job only gets harder and harder, and it's pretty tough to start with.
And I suppose, Alex, from Cambridge's point of view, they're seeing Rovers struggle to put a run together and knowing that if they can pick up a couple of wins here and there, they're making that gap even bigger.
Yeah, I think from an outsider's perspective, there's a real sense of vulnerability around Doncaster. And you could see that in the recent games, but really it was that Morecambe result, which so many people picked up on, being 3-0 up and losing 4-3. So we look at that and we think, not only does it help us in going into the game with the confidence that it will build, but also if we can then start extending that gap that's already quite big, and the other teams around there, your Crews, your Gillinghams, your Morecambes, also struggle to pick up points, then we can hopefully get to a stage around late March, April, where we can say the cushion is big enough and the job is done, really.
it'll be the first time Kyle Noyle's been back to Cambridge since leaving the club in the summer. Of course, there are only a couple of hundred or so Cambridge supporters at the reverse fixture. What sort of reception do you expect him to get on Tuesday night?
Oh, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I don't think that people have anything against, or Cambridge fans don't have anything against Kyle Noyle, and especially at the beginning of the season, it was expected that he'd move on. I guess from a Cambridge perspective, in hindsight, it's not really a move that, at least at this point, has worked out. With Cambridge being higher in the table, and maybe there were options to go and play higher. I don't know. It should be a good atmosphere because of the fact that it is a big game and it's one that people expect us to win. I'm sure we'll get a good enough reception. I don't think that people are going to start turning on him, and I think that there's a real sense of appreciation for what he helped Cambridge achieve last season because he played such a big part in it.
Liam, you mentioned the addition of Kieran Agard in particular, a man who has got 100 career goals to his name. He just adds that bit of something extra, doesn't he, at the top end of the pitch? You know that if he can get the ball into certain areas, he's going to be in there to try and turn them into the back of the net.
Yeah, and it's good that he's coming out. I know he's not played a lot of football at Plymouth, but it's good that he has been playing a part, and he started the last couple of games that they had in the league, which is great, and hopefully he's chomping at the bit to get going. We know what he can do. He's been a fantastic striker at this level in the past. He's got a bit to prove that he can still do it at this level and still score on a regular basis. But if Rovers can begin to get the best out of him and get him back to something like that form that he showed when he were at Rotherham or MK Dons, Bristol City, then it's a fantastic signing.
Go on then, Alex. League One, such a difficult one to predict any sort of result, but no matter who the teams are, how do you see this one going on Tuesday night?
I think I have to be confident based on the form and the difference in the league positions, and I think that Cambridge can probably get a physical edge on Doncaster. I especially think Joe Iron's side's been so good at bullying defences, and I think that this is a golden opportunity to do that again and capitalise on that low confidence. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 Cambridge win.
And Liam, how important is this game as a real opportunity for Rovers, as we said, to claw some ground back on the teams above? Where do you see it being won and lost?
I think, well, as I said, I think they've got to start showing some resolve and start being difficult. And hopefully, I'd like to see a bit of that attacking, edge that they showed, that aggression in getting forward and being relentless when the opportunities come. Were at Morecambe. So Rovers have got to go about it in the right way. The thing that's let them down a little bit is just not being able to turn the tide in a game this season. They've struggled to do that. So being able to show a bit of that would be great, but hopefully getting into a position of strength and holding on to it, that'd be great. I can see them going there and getting a draw. I think they're not a million miles off some positivity, but they just can't keep taking the hits that they've took. That second half at Morecambe, that game against Fleetwood. Obviously, we're yet to see what happens against Wigan, but show a bit of strength. Hopefully, buoyed by the addition of Kieran Agard and go out there and a point. It's not amazing for Doncaster Rovers given the position that they're in, but it's a start and it's something to build on. So, if they can go out and get that, I think that'd be a fairly positive result.